I'm trying to get a picture to you guys. Trying to get back to you. Trying to get back to you. Don't know if I'm live because I haven't looked yet, but I assume I am. All right. They had an eagle, Mexican. Something happened. Sorry. Hey, Robert. My eyesight. Robert Kepke. I wish they put these comments over where the camera is. I wonder if I could switch that around. It's a flaw in their system, but I guess they don't. Not everybody uses Apple. Buenas tardes, amigo. Hola, my old friend. Cinco de Mayo is on Tuesday, and I'd hoped we'd meet by then. You killed my brother. You shot him 6 times in the back. I'm gonna, I forget the words. I'm gonna feed you a chicken. Buenas tardes, amigo. Hola, my good friend. Buenas tardes, amigo. Hola, my good friend. Cinco de Mayo. It's on Tuesday, and I'd hoped we'd see each other again. You killed my brother last winter. You shot him 3 times in the back. In the night, I still hear Mama weeping. Oh, Mama, she still dresses in black. I've looked at every fiesta. For you, I wanted to greet. Maybe I'd sell you a chicken with poison interlaced with the meat. You look like my brother. Mama loved him the best. He was head honcho with the ladies. Mama always said he was blessed. The village all gathered around him. They couldn't believe what they saw. I said it was you who had killed him, and that I'd find you and upstand the law. The people of the village believed me. Mama, she wanted revenge. I told her that I'd see you. I told her that I'd see that she was honored. I'd find you and put you to death. So now that I've found you, on this such a joyous day, I tell you, it was me who killed him. But the truth, I'll never have to say. Buenas tardes, amigo. Hola, my good friend. Cinco de Mayo is on Tuesday, and I'd hoped we'd see each other again. Yes, I hoped we'd see each other again. I'm sure you have been absent for a while. So because you have shown little interest in GTII and in Finger, I am not going to answer your question. You can, I'm sure I'll talk about Finger at some point. I'm sure Ham will, but don't just show up after being absent and expect instant answers. Hey, Marcelo, how are you? Buenas tardes, amigo. Hola. Good things are coming our way. Yeah, I think that's the key thing to remember. We've been going through a tough time. I'm still trying to figure out how to get, he says, wow. So you're a real person. All right. So sorry, B. Mavros. I don't know if you're real or not. You come on like a what do you call them? Basher. You come on like a basher. So if you're not a basher, I'm sorry. Sorry. I have nothing to say about GTII. It's worthless. GTII is worthless. It's not worth talking about. Finger, I think there's a possibility that we'll have earnings Tuesday. Cinco de Mayo is on Tuesday. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure you're a big fan. That's why you've been absent. I'm sure you're a big fan. Hey, Susan Michaels. Let's see how I should organize this. I want to show you before Ham's going to come on in 20 minutes. I want to show you guys something here. I don't know why everything isn't quite working out, but that's life. Okay, so I want to show you, and I may have lost some of those first comments by meandering over to these pictures, but I want to show you the share. Let me take Bob, who's been absent, message down. The share of U.S. global, sorry, leave the U.S. out. Global foreign exchange reserves over the last, I guess that's 5 years about. The U.S. dollar still remains comfortably above 60%. I do not see de-dollarization happening overnight. But the blue is the euro, the navy blue is the euro. The Great Britain pound is pale blue, sky blue. And I have a feeling that's going to get less and less important. The Japan yen is still up there in the lime green, and I don't know what kind of green that is. I think that's going to get less and less important. And I guess CNY is the Swiss franc, I guess. I'm not sure. Anyway, other is increasing, as you can see. Other is increasing. Then the other thing I want to show you before we talk is this. I say things to you and I try to enter them into evidence a little bit, but this is silver industrial demand annually since 2010 as a percentage of silver production. This is the percent of silver demanded or used in industrial applications of the amount of silver produced, supplied annually. I don't know, and there's other charts. There's one other chart I could show you. I think it's proprietary though, so I'm not going to show it. I'll just tell it to you. But in 2024, I don't know what the F stands for, 86% of the silver that was produced was used for industrial purposes. In 2023, 80%. In 2022, 70%. In 2021, 70%. In 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 60%. And even when it was somewhat less, it was still over 50%. All right, so hey Morty, hey Zizu, yeah, happy Palm Sunday. I have to go today to that. You call me for baby. Let me see if I can find that. I'm not your mother. You're not my mother. Let's see if that comes up. That one, I haven't seen this one. Maybe it'll be cute.
You're not my mother, though you claim to be. Don't call me fur baby, it's really creepy. Don't you understand? We're different species. You are a human, and I'm a doggy. You're just so dum 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 dum. You're not my mother, though you claim to be. Don't call me fur baby, it's really creepy. Don't you understand? We're different species. You are a human, and I'm a doggy. You're just so dum 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 dum.
Yeah, someday I'll get another dog if God sets it up. God sets it up. You're not my mother. So, where to begin? Where do I begin to tell the story of love so true? I really think behind the scenes, you don't see it in the headlines, I think the bond market is under stress because of that trade. Let's see if there's any information here that will address that. This is not a really good article, but I'll just skim some of the headlines. Wall Street cries in terror after a manic panicking week. Stocks not in the driver's seat anymore. And that's where my call could be wrong. The one thing we have to look out for is once it's the bond market, look out below in the stock market. But I don't think we're Trump is negotiating with the Congo for a mining deal. He keeps moving forward. Investors fatigued. The stock market is not in the driver's seat anymore because, according to Goldman Sachs, the US dollar lower plus higher yields will continue to apply pressure on the S&P 500. My only argument is this is all going to be true in, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. But this is our future. And I admit I could be, I'm pushing my bet, so to speak. I could be wrong. Wednesday's notational United States short covering was the largest since August of 2015. Of course, it wasn't in our stocks. Last week's dip buying was concentrated on one day, but there was a lot of it. Net flows into global equity funds were strongly positive last week, but the underlying pattern was mixed. Okay. Here's a closer look. All right. Goldman Sachs is starting to see a return of asset managers de-risking technology, the big techs, the MAGA 7, and banks. Yeah, I think ETFs are active. Sentiment is poor. Confusion is high. Liquidity is light. Panic is heavy. Volume is heavy. And headlines suck. And I guess Lion of All Trades kind of called this. One other guy here, the guy that talked about the Christian investment or investor. Goldman team shows investors are weary and largely expect the S&P to make new lows. That's probably means it's not going to happen. I know you're weary. Hedge funds were whipsawed to a record degree. Individual retail investors didn't lose faith in equities. And they have been buyers. They bought stocks and ETFs. It's interesting. Goldman's derivative desk writes, quote, the market has reached a level of exhaustion and clients are not adding new index hedges in options given the outright level of implied volatility. Thanks for clearing that up. The one area Goldman did see demand was short-dated calls to hedge headline risk of negotiations with China. U.S. consumer stocks with China sales exposure offer the most upside convexity. I read a whole book on convexity, and I still don't quite understand what it is. It's probably something simple, but man. It was written by George Soros. I think it was convexity. Might have been another word he talked about. All right, so that's putting it all together. Here are the 9 key bullet points summarizing the last 3 weeks. 1, Goldman prime brokerage data showed that Wednesday was the largest notational net buying in U.S. equities in over a decade. Almost all of it was short covering. Second point, hedge fund clients had reduced risk and added shorts aggressively into Wednesday's large reversal, with long short hedge funds capturing 2.2% in a day. That's really big. They get excited over 2% a month. See, a lot of this they know about. It's going on. The headlines are just there to keep us separated from each other and angry at each other. Number 3, the S&P 500 traded 3 intraday ranges, which set records going back to folks. Number 4, NASDAQ's 12% return on Wednesday was the 3rd best day ever, only behind 2 days in 2008. None of those larger updates marked the low for the index in those periods. That's interesting. Bear that in mind. None of those larger updates marked the low for the index in those periods. In other words, we've got a little bit more volatility ahead, maybe. Number 5, over 30 billion shares traded in the United States on Wednesday. That was a new record, surpassing the prior record on Monday of last week of 29 billion. 6, and this is where I think we're seeing an unwinding and hedge funds in trouble with the basis trade. 6, the 3-day 60 bips surge in 10-year bond yields marked the largest 3-day move in yields since Ronald Reagan, since 1982. That's significant. The 17% drawdown in semi-stocks, semiconductors, I assume, was the largest move since the 1970s. There was a lot of movement in the 70s. There was disco fever. Yeah, it's rotation. And remember all of this. If I'm right that we have a blow off top, remember all of this is going to come again in spades. 8, the implied growth downgrade in the equity markets this week was a top 4 event of the last 50 years, only topped by the 1987 crash, November of the great financial crisis, and March 2020 of the shock. Finally, after having its worst one-day move in history on April 3rd, the Goldman beta pair had its best day ever on Wednesday, for whatever that's worth. So recharge this weekend, because it all starts up again late on Sunday when the futures reopen. The implied move for the S&P is up 4.5% next week. We'll see. China's import-export numbers on Sunday night. China's Q1 GDP on Tuesday. Powell set to deliver remarks in Chicago on Wednesday. The ECB is holding a policy meeting on Thursday. And next week kicks off the start of earnings season. So that's your update. Ham will be calling in a in a second, so I'll stop talking for now. Stop reading. Hey, Patrice, happy Sunday. What did you say that upset the Google people yesterday? Pulled your video. I was worried about that. My guess is instead of using womanism, I used a word that began with F. I think that's probably why they pulled it. I don't know. Let me look it up. Maybe they gave me a notice. I guess I've got to learn how to go to Rumble. I don't want to go to Rumble. But I guess I'm going to have to do that. That's what I also, I remember using the F word once. Maybe that was it. Let me see what. YouTube. YouTube video cannot be monetized and is blocked. Copyrighted content. Oh, no, it was the Rod Stewart. Darn it. It's blocked in 247 territories. I can edit out the segment. Whatever, I don't care. I think Amy Bell deserves some monetization. That's what it was. It was Rod Stewart. It wasn't womanism. Yeah, Vin, I'm not a big fan of thinking the criminals are going to be margin called across all stocks. I think that you could see a margin call in GBUX, GBUX. I think you could see a margin call, maybe, I'm less certain on that, more flip of the coinish, on Nixie over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think you could see a margin call happen eventually in Finger. I just don't feel like it happens before the annual report, before there's clarity on funding, et cetera, et cetera. But there's huge potential for good news and good problem solving in Finger's case that could set the stock price much higher, and then you could have buying there. And then I think Railtown, RLAIF, has the potential. It's not a short squeeze play. To me, it's just a revaluation of the whole company from a R&D company to a company which has the potential not only for strong revenues, but revenue growth quickly. And in that context, there could be a little bit of a short squeeze. But no, I think they have the whole market under control. I don't think anyone enforces failure to deliver. I think it's systemic. They need, what they really need to do is come out with full disclosure. Hey, U.S. market participants, when you invest in the stock market, you pay cash up front, but we're going to take our sweet ass time about settling trades. And currently we estimate across all securities that the leverage caused by that is as high as 50 to 1, something like that. I think they have to disclose it. I used to disagree on that point. I didn't, my brother would say that, but I'm starting to think it is a Marxist plot. What's your confidence on the May 12th rumor ban on short selling. Well, I'm not him, so I can ask him. And number two, I don't think there'll be a ban on short selling. There may be a ban on short selling in the treasury market or in the shares of NVIDIA or something. But that, to me, that's a sign of desperation. Markets put in these short selling bans because they blame the short sellers, the real short sellers or the criminal short sellers, when in fact what's going on is a correction in the market, and they're in trouble. What do you hello?
I'm sorry I'm late. I had to feed the puppies.
Well, everyone went home. No,
My wife's friend.
You're live right now. You're live right
it's
now.
It's okay. My wife's friend, dad passed away, and me and my wife always helped out. You know, taking care of him in the nursing home, taking him to the doctors and stuff like that. And my wife's friend took my wife to London for 4 days. So I'm
to meet
home.
The two gay guys?
I don't care who she met with. As long as the other girl was paying for it, I could care less where they went. But I let the puppies into the kitchen, and my wife has some sort of rug that's near the
Oh,
sink.
no, they pooped on it.
Dogs peed on it. Both of them peed on it. I put it outside. It's been raining for 3 days. The thing is soaking wet. I can't get it dry. I'm using the leaf blower trying to dry it now. I have to get it dry because she's coming home tomorrow, and I got to make believe nothing happened. So I'm sort of in a pickle here, trying to get things in order.
Put it in the dryer.
I have it in the dryer now, but it's a long, skinny rug. I don't know what the hell you call it. A runner? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. She goes, "I don't let the dogs go in here." I said, "No, I won't let them do it." Boom, 2 minutes they did it. But so anyway, I've lost my voice for the last 3 weeks, Liam. I had allergies. I didn't have COVID or anything like that. It's just every night I started sneezing, and I coughed so much I lost my voice. So I can only talk for 20 minutes at a clip, and then I lose it again. So I'll give you my best, whatever I have. But let me start off by talking about a company, and I won't give you the symbol, but me and William are trying to get some work, and I'm close to getting us a deal, and we'll let you know if we do. But the company is working on cancer, and they have over 1 billion. They have 100 million shares in the float, and over 1 billion shares short. And I just want to give you a little feeling of what it is talking to a CEO and some of the legal people, which I've done, William. I did it last week, 3 times, excuse me. They have no idea what's going on. They're blaming it on the market downturn and that they're shorting biotechs. That's what they knew. They know nothing about it. They were funded by JP Morgan in the beginning. The stock is created, and they're like 80 cents now, and they don't know what to do. And they have 150 million in the bank, and they have products, and they have things going on, trials and all that stuff. But and I told them about a story the other day in the Journal, how the Chinese biotechs are outperforming the U.S.
because they don't have short selling.
You got it. That's it. They understood it then. They knew I read the story, and they couldn't believe it. So when I told them that I had access to the data, but they want the data to present to their board of directors. That's the only way they can justify doing this stuff, because their attorneys give them a tough time. They always do that. They listen to their attorneys. And if you go back in time, I spoke with the chairman of MULN and his lawyers and everybody, and they chose not to do what I told them to do. And instead, they reversed the stock 7 times, and they're 3 cents again.
But they got board approval.
They got board approval for that.
So,
I mean, the lawyers, I spoke with their lawyer. I did everything for them. And it just shows you that these people have no idea. They've been bamboozled by Wall Street. They're all afraid of the SEC. And that's why most of these companies never do anything, because they're afraid they're going to get retaliation from the SEC. But no retaliation, their companies are wiped out. Short sellers made a fortune, and there you go. So again, these companies, which I have to, it takes hours, not minutes, hours to convince them. So they're trying to get the data from buy-ins.net. They're working on, they're having a call tomorrow, I think. And once they get the data, then they can determine how we can help them. And one thing, William, I just want people to understand is that this company has a patent, and they get some sort of fees from their patent. I'm not sure if it was $1.25 million or $1 million a year. I wasn't sure what he said. Either way.
So it's a license.
It's a license, yes. And they basically, yes, they get compensated for it. And I told them that we should dividend that out to the shareholders and turn it into a bearer bond, because I think the license is good for 5 years, William. So if you do it quarterly for 5 years, you create some sort of security with a coupon on it. And after each quarter, you cut your coupon and you send it in and you get your money, correct?
I don't know, you've thought it through, but I would tell them that it has to go out as type 1. It has to go out physical delivery only. It can't be in street name.
Well, whatever it is we come up with their attorneys, I'm going to bring my friend on who's an expert on it. But just shooting from my top of my head, I told you guys, since you're generating some sort of revenue and attach it to the dividend, it's very different. That to me is like crypto gold for these guys. And they just got to get over the hump. But that's the blueprint of which I've outlined for them. So we'll get back to you on that. And William, I'll keep in touch with you on that. And hopefully we can get it and get compensated for it. We'll let everybody know if we do. And we'll go from there at that point. But I won't give you the name until we actually get a job with them, or if they pass on us, then we'll let you know who they are. Stay away. But if they don't do something, they're going to get wiped out. They got twice as much cash as their stock is worth. It's just remarkable.
I can't remember, but there was another biotech company that had hundreds of millions to 150, 250 million, and even 400. And it got destroyed. You probably remember it. I can't remember the name of it, but it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you have a high burn rate and you have to spend it, and you still have further testing, they're going to destroy your stock price.
Well, the reason I was intrigued, because it does work on cancer, and I'm a firm believer in that. We need to save these companies. I have no vested interest in it. I'm just telling you that someone reached out to me, a shareholder, and I spoke with them, and it's moved along. And, they asked me point blank, would you, I says, I have to speak to, people that I want to bring around. And it would be fairly hefty, compensation, but, we'll take a lot in restricted paper. This way we're part of the team going forward. We would be with them. We're not looking to just run away. So we'll see what happens with that. But, every day there's companies like that. I get 4 or 5 a day. And, every CEO, William, you always said it best. Every CEO has a bad business plan.
How is it possible? Thank God for Jeff Easton. He protects the world from all these bad CEOs.
Every CEO, no matter what they do, build a car, it's bad. Work on cancer, bad. This type of cancer, that's no good. This
battery, bad.
Yeah, everything is bad.
Defense, bad. Robotic medical aid, bad.
Whatever it is.
Fight cancer, bad. Thank God for Jeff Easton.
They all do it. It's just remarkable. So, William, I don't know if you've been, I have a shareholder that is excellent at making the slide presentations for Twitter or the truck. And I put up 5 new ones a day. I'm even getting tired of doing it. I've insulted the free world. Now I'm insulting the president, Devin Nunes, and everybody else around him. And I figured today that we might as well, I don't know if you saw one of the posts from yesterday. You know, they're going after the MS-13 gang members, which are pretty hard to find, those guys. All they have is tattoos all over their face. And if you can't find those guys, the police, I don't know who you can find. So we know that there's stock counterfeiters like Jeff Easton or the guy, Kevin Tufts from ASCM. Well, we went out of our way and we put tattoos on their face and called them MS-13 gang members. They're counterfeiters and gang members. We put that up. And then we twisted it a little bit because Kid Rock was nice enough to go to President Trump and get him to make laws to protect the artists from ticket scalpers, which I think will never be handled properly. That'll never happen. Because if I buy a ticket for $100 and it's the hottest show in the world, I'm going to sell it for $300 whether you like it or not. If you want to buy it, you buy it. You don't want to buy it, that's ticket scalping. I don't know how you shut it down or whatever hell they're complaining about. But for some reason, Kid Rock got that approved by Trump. And he had a beautiful photo op taken, him in his red, white, blue flag outfit for President Trump. Well, later today, we're going to have Kid Rock with a sign saying, lock up stock counterfeiters or whatever, naked short, whatever I said. And we're going to go after Kid Rock since he's always around the president with Elon Musk and the president. Maybe we'll get Elon Musk to move on this thing. Kid Rock to push on it for us. Seems like a good guy. Let's see if he steps up. All right. But let's move on. Just let you know that we're trying our best. Last night, I got a call from an attorney who told me May 12th, William, is when naked short selling or the short selling ban will go into effect. I don't know exactly what
you already
saying.
have two questions on that.
I just got a call last night about it. I'm telling you, he's an attorney. And for those who ask, I do not go into details. Someone's not calling me up to manipulate something. So this is someone that has good connections in D.C., and I don't question it. I just said thank you and just said what I heard. So that's what I heard. And as we move closer, hopefully I'll get some more details on it. Or maybe the president will speak about it or somebody will speak about it.
So why would the offshore actors follow that rule?
I agree. I just don't know what exactly he's going to say or do or how much they know. I do not know. I said it before. It's all about stock settlement.
Yeah.
When you buy a stock, whoever sold it to you has to deliver it. I don't care if you sold it from the man on the moon. Yeah. You have to deliver it. Yeah. To me, that's the most important thing. Yeah. All the other stuff is just window dressing on nonsense. Or as they say, William, they're just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic if they don't do something that's, enforceful, and, get enforced. All right, so we know that. So that was good news. Well, let's see what comes out of it. I still can't believe Trump and everybody else around him, or what happened to Doge at the SEC. They were at the doors. I hope they're not looking for them stealing paper clips, and that the stock settlement is a real problem. And William, there was a great post about Elon Musk talking about how the SEC forced him to settle in one of his arguments with them. And he just called it, they just bamboozled him to force the settlement. He goes, I never really agreed to it. This is what was, had to be done. That's what they do. They go after people.
They go after the CEOs.
Right.
They don't go after Jeff Easton because Jeff Easton knows how to day trade Yahoo, and you could never put him out of business because he had so much value to the economy.
Right. So all this nonsense, I can see why they're going after John Berta. He wasn't even the CEO. It's the funny part.
It's in the textbooks in the colleges and universities that CEOs are the problem, not Jeff Easton.
So for all you MMTLP people, I was with John Berta maybe 6 days ago. I had breakfast with him. Great guy. Things are moving along. He expects to get released from his lawsuit. There's a lot of good things that he expects. I'm not going to speak for him, but he's very positive and he's a good guy. and I know him for a long time. So he came to New York. I ran in, sat down with him, and had breakfast with him. But I did that the other day. I've had multiple meetings with all kinds of people. I do it every day, William. You know that. And it's just getting, it's just enough of this. The market mayhem that we just witnessed is what I used to live for. When people are tossing things out of the window, I buy them. When they rally them back, I sell them. You could have 6 or 7 opportunities to buy the dip and sell the rip. And, these things were running, 20 points. I've been watching Goldman trying to get a feel for them. The thing's up and down $50. I mean, it's just out of control. And to sit here and try to fight for everybody on naked short selling is something I wanted to do. But it's become so long that, William, myself, we need to get back to making a living. We're not spring chickens anymore. We need to start getting back into, making a living for ourselves. All right. William's by himself. I have a family. I mean, we just have bills and we just get run over. And, I don't think that people realize, a lot of people do. I'm not saying that. But when people bash me or bash William, I think it's totally unfair. We're giving you our time. We can't guarantee anything. We're not the SEC. I told you, give me a jacket that says FBI and a gun and a badge, and I will get these guys in hours. We would have them. But we don't control that stuff. I don't know who's allowing this, what level, who's doing what. But at this point, we need to make a living. I know I can make myself at least 500 to 1,000 a day, easy, every day. If I ramp it up, I can probably make 5,000 a day. That's how crazy it is, the volatility. The shorts need volatility, people. Volatility is how people panic and how the shorts cover. Those events that just happened were, I guess, fueled by short sellers pushing stocks down, stop loss orders, people panicking, people on margin. The shorts know that. And they buy these dips, and when they start covering, like they did the other day when Trump made that statement, now's a good time to buy, and the market ran up 3,000. That was a big short squeeze. And then on the next day, collapsed again. Those are the shorts buying. Longs are not running in here buying at this point. The longs are nervous. The longs are out of cash. And they're sitting here, and it's controlled by the short sellers, this market. So you got to learn how to play around these characters. And that I understand it perfect. So, and you can see it when they're squeezing. You got to sell into them all the time. All right. So there's great opportunities out here. Again, if you're invested in a finger motion or a GBUX or whatever it may be, you can, if you have the money. Okay, I'm sort of trapped like William. We're fully invested. And it's tough to do it, to buy all these other names. They're expensive. It's not free. We all want to play with the least amount of money and make the most back. And the options are all priced for this crazy volatility. Again, shorts need volatility. That's how they cover. And a classic example has been GBUX. The stock was $9. They took it down $4 in one day, selling 60 or 70,000 shares at the market. The stock has never traded like that, but they needed to mark it down. Then it bounces back, and they began to process again on Friday. All right. So it's a long week for everybody trading that name or investing in that name. But that's what they do. Who sells the stock lower to get less money? I don't think anybody on this call would ever do that. Hi, I bought 5,000 shares at 8. Let me sell it down to 4.5 because I'm angry. No one does that. There's the shorts that just sells, just pressing their bet. I think the real short in this number, the naked short, is around 2.8 million, and let's say 50,000 or 60,000. I'm just rounding it up, William, to 3 million because at this rate we'll be there any day. So I don't have to keep checking the numbers. So I'll just go above it and just say 3 million for argument's sake. And this way I'm tired of counting the numbers. But 3 million shares, average price maybe 2.5, and they want this stock down at all costs. And what that tells me, it's going to go higher and higher. There was a stock the other day, William. Let me see if I have the symbol here. Give me 1 second. Someone brought it to my attention. It's a tough one. Hold on a second. It went from like a couple of bucks to $60 or $40-something. Maybe somebody else knows about it. I forgot the symbol.
I didn't hear of it.
Excuse me?
I didn't hear of it.
Something with an N. Something with an N. I'll try to find it. I know someone texted it to me, and I think I posted it. Something with an N. Went from nothing. It did a reverse. It had no float. It traded 30 million shares, and then it just went to 50 or $60. I don't even know where it is. But you can see what happens, William, once the shorts stop covering. As you can see in Newsmax, it's always back down to $23, right? Mm-hmm. Went public. I told everyone I would short it myself. It's a stupid news channel. That we needed more of them. We don't need a cancer treatment. We need another news channel to report on Trump or whatever the hell they're reporting on. But the stock is probably worth $10, not 275. But the problem is, everyone on this phone call, we can't borrow the shares to short it. There's no puts, so you can't short it. Who is shorting it? Just more naked short sellers, guys like Citadel, taking advantage of smaller shorts who were covering. So it goes from smaller shorts to bigger shorts, and the bigger shorts always win out because they have the right not to be bought in by the big players because they pay commissions, and this is how they borrow. So it's always the big players, and they just keep making tons of money. Again, it's a game, and it's illegal to what they do, but we can't stop it. Like, Newsmax was a classic example. I have friends that have small hedge funds, 50 million, 100 million, and they told me point blank, don't even look at it. You can't. No one can get a borrow except somebody, the big boys like Ken Griffin or somebody like that, or Stevie Cohen. No one can get it. So it's a waste of time. So you can't look at it, even though I wanted to short it at 250.
It was JNVR.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry.
NV Ryan. JNV. Anyway, JNVR.
Yeah, it went crazy. I don't even know. I stopped looking. Again, people, this is a needle in a haystack. You never know when they're going to go. I never heard of that stock before. And I'm sure no one's even heard of it or got into it. All right? The stocks that we have are so massively short that they can't let it go up a quarter. Think about that. If I was to short GBUX and people were buying it, let us take it to 20. I told you, I shorted for Michael Steinhardt back in the day. And he always told me, get me higher prices. The higher the prices, sell 2 million shares, you got an $80 low. I would love to sell it at 83, 84 average. The stock was going up. I sell into it. I get an 85 average. Instead of getting 6 cents a share on 2 million shares, he'd give me 8 cents for being a good job. That's how much commission you got paid when you did the job well. If I called him up and said, you told me to sell it 2 million shares and, not held, let's say. And I said, okay, it was 80. It closed at 83, but I sold your stock down to 65 because I was pushing it down. I would never get another order again. All right? That is completely not a smart short sell. But these guys are just shorting to destroy. And they can't let them go up because they don't have the money to play. They're playing with pennies. It's like me and William playing. We don't have the money to go out there and short $100 stock. Who does? You need big money to do that. And anyone trying to knock stocks down to get lower prices is a complete fraud. No one does that. If you own a stock at 10 and it got knocked down to 7 and it runs back up to 10, breaking even, getting out, losing a quarter, that's normal. Not saying, okay, it went from 10 to 7, back up to 10, and you give the order, please sell it back to 7. No one does that. So again, this is all fraudulent trading. These techniques are complete just manipulation. I wish I could say that there's something normal about it. There is nothing. It's just fraud. There's nothing normal about the trading that you're seeing in the equity markets. Zero.
You got as many laughs as Johnny Carson used to get.
I was watching it last night with Rodney Dangerfield, and he had one with Don DeLuise. He was making him. Don DeLuise was falling on the floor. It was so funny. You can always kill a half hour listening to Rodney Dangerfield jokes. You can always
I've had it up to here with sex. Not lately, though.
He like took the cab driver. Take me. I need him looking for some action. He goes. He took me to my house.
I went up to the bartender. He asked me what I wanted to drink. I said, "Surprise me." He showed me a naked picture of my wife.
There was a guy running down the street. He goes, "Hey, why didn't you got no clothes on?" He goes, "Because you came home early." Anyway,
my wife met me at the front door in her negligee. She was coming home. There is Finger Motion having a dividend report on Tuesday, or is it at the end of May?
Someone I know was at the Martin had some conference in New York. It was a one-on-one. I wasn't there, but it was with institutions again. And the hedge fund that we know was there. Asked him point blank, and he said that the year end was it. They just had the year end, William. Is that what it was?
Yeah, February 29th.
Right. That number. That means the audit was complete. That's what he said. The audit is complete. Once that number is released, they'll release the updated filing for the S3. I think it's called an S3 for the dividend. So it's all coming. So I expect it to be on that day, which is June 1st. I think it is. May 31st.
So they're going to delay the report for the fourth quarter for the annual report. So yeah, end of May, beginning of June.
That's what he
Yahoo has May 28th.
So it's the end of the month. That's what basically he told me.
Okay, all right.
But it's all systems go. They're going to file the.
Do you have an update on HU? HU.
No, I do not.
I cut you off on Finger. Did you say? My friends
bought the stock up to 9. That's who bought it. They're down millions of dollars.
Did you say everything you wanted to say about Finger? I cut you off.
No, I just talked about the dividend. That's what the guy said. The hedge fund told me, and he was buying the stock. He says the company is ready to explode. That's his opinion. He met with Martin. He enjoyed it, and he told us. I asked him, to get the information about the dividend, and that's what he told me. I don't need him to describe the company to me. I get that from. Hey, get off of him. I can see that myself with your videos and what the CEO says.
Do you know anything about Northwest Bio?
I think they're going to settle. Yes, I've been hearing that they're going to settle, and You know they're going to settle. They're going to settle it, seal it. The company's going to get a boatload of money. The lawyers are going to get a boatload of money, and
shareholders get screwed.
You got it.
Why did it
so
halt?
Unless they come out with their cure for cancer and their data is, we've been hearing the data is good, and I only wish it to be good, because who wants brain cancer? So I hope it's good, and that's where the shareholders will get rewarded. When the company gets a settlement, I guess they'll put money to work and try to get that approval, the FDA approval on the cancer treatment.
And why did Northwest Biosystems halt on the German market?
Oh, I didn't know that. German market's all fraud.
Of course it is.
Hey, get off of him. Hey. One dog is dragging the other one by his scalp, his head. I don't know how they don't fight, cry. Anyway, go ahead. No, I don't understand. I don't know why that happened. I can ask. I didn't know. I didn't look into it. People, I get hit with so many different things, I can't remember them anymore. I try to jot it down.
When people like Citadel or others sell stock or process stock that doesn't exist, can they do it without any cost?
There's costs involved in everything. Wall Street's not letting anybody operate for free. Why do you think the brokerage firm stocks all keep going up? They're paying for order flow, so they need to make money. So they're naked shorting it and they're manipulating it. That's where they're making the money. They're not trading for free. Everything costs money. Everything. I'm sure Citadel has ways to maybe cut down their costs, doing it someplace else on a different exchange. Maybe that's why they're opening that Texas exchange, to save costs, so they don't have to pay FINRA and the New York Stock Exchange their fees. Maybe that's why they're doing it.
Why don't you think the SEC's done anything about failure to locate, failure to deliver, failure to request delivery?
Because what's going to happen here, and you're going to get the sign, it's like the steal sign, William, in baseball. When the SEC does anything to tighten this noose or shut down these animals, the people that work at the SEC are going to call up all the lawyers that work for the hedge funds and give them the heads up. It's sort of like the tip on inside information. And all you have to do is go watch The Big Short when the young girl's at the pool in Las Vegas and she's sitting there waving to a guy. He goes, who are you waving to? He goes, oh, he works for Goldman Sachs. That's where I want to go work next. That's what the people at the SEC do. So they're going to tip off, the big law firms. Big law firms will tip off the hedge funds, and the hedge funds that are short, you'll start to see some panic covering ahead of the curve, ahead of it before you get to see it. And that's why I'm a firm believer in, if you believe in that, naked shorts are a big problem. If you believe a stock that you're following has a big problem, naked shorts, you have to buy it before, because once those guys get the tip off, you won't be able to buy it. That's how I feel. And I know it well because I was around people that sort of, I think, had real inside information. And when they got a tip in something, they didn't buy 1,000 shares every hour. I've seen them do it. They go in and they buy 1 million shares, because if they got the information, they know someone else is going to get it. And they'd rather buy it and be up $3 and catch the next $23, but they want to make sure they own it. So when you get that scoop, most people just run and buy it. They don't tiptoe in. They go in like animals to get it. And I've seen it done. So if you're short and you get the tip, you're going to run in and start covering. That's what they're going to do.
What's your forecast for GBUX this coming week?
It's so much manipulation. The other day, I think I had a guy buying 15,000. Yeah, when it got crushed, when they knocked it down 4, I bought 15,000, William. The stock was 6.5 going down. I put the orders in. I was with the people on the phone doing it. by 15,000 at 6. The short wanted it down so much they sold it to a 550 or 560, I think it was.
Wow. Nice trade.
15,000 shares, 40 cents lower.
Nice trade.
All right?
Yeah.
You're talking about, what, $7,000 that they could have made more selling it at 6. 50 cents times 15,000, right? What is that? 5,000. Another half. It's like $7,500, $7,000. They don't even care when they're selling it to knock it down. They don't want the stock to turn and go back up. That's what they do, and that's the clear sign to me of the manipulation. So when you say, what do you think? I know people are buying it. I know it's going to turn up, but when they want to manipulate, it's I can't stop it. You can see what they do. Any other questions?
Malcolm hopes the short squeeze ban happens on May 12th.
I hope it happens tomorrow.
Do you think MMTLP will have a settlement?
Yes. Only because everyone and their mother signed that document in D.C. There's like 100 people signed it. So they all know about it. They can't hide. That was the greatest thing they ever did. I think Anna did that. I think she did that. She had all those signatures. I forgot who did it.
I know who took credit for it.
I don't know who took credit for it, but I know she was doing it. But I think that was a brilliant thing because now everyone on that list has to say something. They signed that paper.
Yeah.
I think you'll get a settlement, but it'll be another private settlement. Like Credit Suisse. Just think of Credit Suisse. It blew up because of naked short selling, all the fraud there. They sealed it for 50 years. I've never seen that. Everyone here will be dead. That's how much they want to hide this thing for 50 years. And that's what they're going to do to Northwest Bio. That's what they're going to do to MMTLP. They're going to have to pay you. They're going to come up with a number. They're letting everybody choke to death. I don't know what the number is going to be. I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say it's $25 a share. The short stole about $6 a share, so it's costing them $19. All the money they've stolen to pay you off. Most people who haven't had money in 2 years or whatever, it's 3 years now. What do you think they're going to do, William? They're going to take the money.
They'll settle. They'll take you.
That's what they do. They're just waiting you out.
Have you
That's all they
sign
do.
a release, and you won't.
That's it. And if you post anything about it, you're going to be exposed for it. That's what they'll do. The Northwest Bio thing, I'm hearing, is coming soon. To settlement. I've been hearing it for the last couple of days. But there's no way to profit from it. The stock went down to 18 cents. William, I have a couple of guys, they bought 1 million shares of Northwest Bio. On my word, I told them what I heard. And the stock went from 30 cents, if we wanted it 28 to 30 cents, let's say 29. It went to 18 cents. The company's in negotiations to settle for big money. And the stock's going down, and they have a trial going on. Who's selling it down at 18? Who would sell a 20-cent stock? Doesn't even make any sense.
The trap short.
That's all it is. Doesn't make any sense. There's no money in it. I told you before, William, my brother who worked with Izzy England of Millennium Capital. Okay, he worked with him as market makers on the option exchange, the American Stock Exchange. And the cardinal rule was never to sell.
How is he?
How is he? Izzy's wife left him for another woman. It was in the New York Post. He's a
Who
scumbag
used to be a man or started out as a woman?
I don't know. Who knows? I don't care. But
he isn't. The
number one rule is to never sell something short. That's trash. meaning an option at 25 cents, or sell stock short that's 20 cents, because all it takes is one squeeze and you're out of business, right? Well, every week there were option guys walking around on the floor of the American, and they used to go and sell out of the money calls on stocks. Let's say the stock is 75, and my brother told me once it was Gulf and Western. And
they got taken over by...
I forgot who got taken over with. They got taken over on a Friday, option expiration. And these guys sold like thousands of calls at a quarter. The stock was like 72, say, and they sold the 80s at a quarter, and the 75s. And the stock got taken over. It was a big price. I think it was like $130 at the time. And these guys, they came down to the exchange, and the police escorted them out. They lost their homes because as a market maker, you got to put up collateral.
Turn the machines back on.
And they got dragged out. They sold all their assets out, and then they were flat broke. Everything. They took everything from them because the exchange winds up taking the hits for them. So that was the cardinal rule. They always told me that. So
luckily, that's not going to happen to Jeff Easton.
Yeah. Jeff Easton's been sacking his money in Australia with that other character, I bet. These guys, when they get to him, he's going to have nothing. Which is okay. I don't care who pays the bill. Wall Street is all guaranteed. Remember that. Everything is guaranteed on Wall Street. Does anyone have any other questions? I think GTI is going to get going soon. That's another thing I'm hearing. GTI is going to get going soon. John Forrest is a great guy. And as soon as they get David Reichman to give back his shares, it'll be off to the races, which I believe he will.
Why do you think they'll wait to stop short selling? Put a ban.
Why do I think they're going to wait?
Till 5/12.
Well, I think that they're reviewing it, if that's possible, but they're looking into the damage. Remember, the one thing about this crime, which is different from every other crime, is that the loss is unlimited to the upside. There's no limit. That's the problem. How do you fix this problem? If it was let's say it was $1 billion hit, and that's all it's going to be is $1 billion. This could be $1 billion, or it could be $50 billion or $100 billion. We don't know. That's the problem. And there's not one of them. There's hundreds of them. That's the problem.
What are your feelings about GBUX and FNGR before the end of April?
Listen, I'm all in. That's all I can tell you. I'm in. I finger motion. The delays are killing me as much as they're killing you. And you know what? We're under the radar. The market's wiped out. A lot of these big, people, these stocks never went up with the big names. The video went up to the moon. Walmart, Costco, you name the Netflix, they all went crazy. I posted about Netflix when they that one quarter, they had 30 million people sign up for it. And a smart guy called me up and says, where all these new subscribers came from was the Mike Tyson fight against that guy, I forgot his name, the young guy, and that fake boxing match, whatever it was. I forget the guy's name. That crypto guy. And that's where it came to, and Netflix went to 1,000. And I said, once the people watch the fight that signed up for Netflix, they're going to cancel it. And I said, Netflix was a short up there. It dropped $200. All right. So, just, you can figure these things out yourself. Just takes a little, use every angle you can when you start investing. All right. That was brought to me by another trader. And I said, I thought he was right. I said, it makes sense. How'd they get 32 million people in one quarter? Everyone just woke up and said they're going to sign up and fight. Jake Paul was the guy's name. And they're going to go watch this fight. But people are paying, $20 a month, whatever it is for Netflix. They cancel it. So just things like that. Think about it. You could trade the market. It's tough to trade against fraud, that I can tell you. Very hard.
Why would Finger wait until?
It's legal stuff. You could just see it. No one's waiting. They don't want to do this. They're sick about it too. Everybody's sick about it. How do you stop the fraud? I've told them multiple times, leave the country. I told big shareholders, tell them, get the hell out of here. I told them at the dinner we were at, find another place.
What do you know about I guess it's called the Treasury basis trade? Do you think that's putting some hedge funds at risk?
Yes, I think everyone's over leveraged. That's what's going on.
And if they bail out one or two of these funds, that's what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, they're going to bail out.
They'll just put it on the Fed's balance sheet.
That's what's going to happen. There you go.
Do you think it will affect the squeeze plays that?
No, I think it's going to, every disaster is going to help us. Every disaster is going to help us because you can see the losses are monstrous. So it's like pulling a Band-Aid. Either Trump's going to do it now or he's never going to do it. It's showtime. I can't tell you the day, but it's going to be showtime. Listen, I made fun of Devin Nunes. You made all those statements. How come what happened to you now, right? I put it up there where you made all this noise, Devin. And now you don't say boo? Come on. He's being told to shut up, obviously.
Do you think they will hit the price of GBUX again? And what price would you try to buy in GBUX? Buy the stock?
I bought 15,000. I tried to pay $6 for it. I paid $560.
Well, I don't know where it's trading right now, but
no, that's very close. 550, 560, something like that.
So that's a good
People,
price.
Listen, this is what happens when you want to buy a stock. We put an order in, we buy it. When I'm done buying it, there's no one. Hey, I'm gonna break up the hockey game here. When there's no one buying it, the shorts see there's no bids, and they just start marking down 100 shares. So when you see them do their little cha-cha, that's when you buy it because you know it's just manipulation. Just look at the volume. If the volume is 100 shares being sold and marked down, let's say they mark it down 50 cents or 70 cents on 300 shares, that's the time to buy it. Wait, there was a story on Zero Hedge about gold going to 4,000 or something like that. Take a look at it when you get a chance.
They're brave. I've been predicting that for...
I don't know. I just saw a headline. That's why I just saw a headline. I'm not a commodity guy, so that's your thing.
I don't know. You are. Everything's a commodity on Wall Street. They turn it all into a ping pong.
Well, that's what it turned into, a commodity. This is like a gold pit when during the crazy days when gold was going crazy, crude oil or cocoa. These things used to run hundreds of dollars. That's what it's like now.
All right, so this asshole, and he is an asshole.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Next. I'm not here. Listen, I'm giving my time.
I know.
There's no reason to listen to an asshole.
I
didn't call his number up. Yeah. You didn't call his number up. He's calling up because he wants to spill some nonsense. We cannot guarantee you money. That's not how it works. We can't do it. Mm-hmm. If you want to go sign up for a hotline that gives you stock picks, go knock yourself out. We're giving you our opinions on different things. Get lost. And to listen to those people, anyone that's here to try to bash you is because they know they're in trouble and they're a short seller. That's it.
They also have.
Because why would you waste your time? Why would I waste my time? I'm going to sit there and say, I'm supposed to go out today? No. William and him having a call. I'm going to sit there until I get my message across that they're frauds. Okay, thank you. We got it. Don't waste your time. I've always told you that. Shut them down. Go talk someplace else. Go knock yourself out. Anything else?
Nope. Nothing else.
Nice out. I'll take the dogs out. I'll clean my yard up. Get off my shirt.
Just put the rug out before you take them out. Put the rug
my
down on the grass before you go out.
I have it hanging on a fence. I'm trying to stuff it in the dryer, like you said.
Maybe not. Why don't you let the sun do its work?
Yeah, I'm just trying to go. The sun's out now, so it's beautiful out. But again, I'm losing my voice. You can hear it cracking. It's just allergies, William. It's sneezing and coughing all night long. It's terrible. I don't know where to go to get rid of it, but whatever it is, I've taken all the medicine that I could take, and no more. And that's that. Is everyone okay? Everyone's got their questions?
They got their questions answered. They still
The
have...
one thing I would tell you again, if you are looking for stocks that are in the short squeeze realm, you don't have to pay attention to what we're saying. I think we're very close. I think it's going to happen. And you have to get your bet down before. That's the only thing I can tell you. Make sure you're involved before, because again, the other day showed you exactly what I've been saying. The government has never told you which way the stocks are going to go, right? So if they're going to tell you got to cover a short, it means it's going up. And you saw the other day, Trump tweeted about buying stocks or buying DJT or whatever he said. Now's a good time to buy. Stocks went up 3,000 points. Goldman Sachs was up 50, along with 30 other names were like that. That's the government telling you which way the stocks are going. Look how powerful the move was. Okay? Imagine that same power going into forcing the shorts to cover. Think about that. What will happen? That's how massive it goes. It's going to scream. Stocks are going to go crazy, but unfortunately, you got to be in it. Wall Street again is not a free ride. You got to put up money. That's just the way it is. There's nothing I can say. That's what, I wish it was free. It used to be free, Will. You remember? You used to buy stocks and you send the money in a couple of days. You got 3 days and 2 days.
5 days,
right?
5 days, and 2 days extra for being late.
Right.
Takes 7 days.
That's how it used to be, right? Now, you can't even buy one share of stock unless you have the money in the account. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. People always say, can you go sell a stock? Go on your machine and go try to sell one share of IBM. Everyone's system will block you and say, you can't. You don't own the stock. You can't do it. That's how it works. But the short sellers just hit a button. Anyway, William, I'll get back to you Monday, Tuesday on the cancer company. Hopefully we can get a paying job, everyone. Yes, we're going to try to get paid on this one. And we're just going to help this company help navigate through the criminals. I don't know who the criminals are. I don't know that much details about it. But they want to move fast, and we'll see what happens. If they want to move, I'm willing to help them out. All right, so hopefully we can get that done, William, and we can start profiting from this a little bit and see what happens. Yeah. All right, everybody, I'm going to go do my Sunday chores before my wife comes home.
All right. Okay.
All right, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got it.
All of a sudden, I'm tired. UBS is saying gold can reach 4,500. This is great. That's the thing. If you wait for the verification, you miss the mood. I've been telling you gold's going to go to 4,500, 5,000 since it was 2,000. But I'm just a schmo. Now that UBS, JP Morgan, and Goldman are upgrading their targets, okay, now it makes sense.
All right. Team Alpha Trading. Let me see. My eyesight is so bad. But it's pretty good. I got to be thankful I can at least see, right? Wow. I'm just reading a letter from David Morgan, and he's quoting a guy named David Rogers Webb. And he says, according to Webb's research, the global financial system has increasingly engaged in a practice where all securities, stocks, bonds, and other financial assets are used as collateral by the world's largest bank. This practice, known as collateral management, is carried out without the explicit knowledge of individual investors and institutional funds. What takes these guys so long to know this? The financial securities are pooled in centralized depositories like the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation in the United States and Euroclear in Europe. Securities are rehypothecated multiple times, creating extensive collateral chains that contribute to the rapid expansion of the derivatives market. I guess he wrote it down more succinctly than I've ever said it, but where have you heard this? Since the 1970s, this practice has evolved into a systemic method of leveraging securities for financial gain. It was legally formalized in the 1994. Oh, Bill Clinton. Oh, he's the greatest president we've ever had. Bill Clinton is just wonderful. If we could go back to Bill Clinton, things would be wonderful. It was legally formalized through the 1994 revision of Article 8 of the Uniform Commercial Code in the United States. These legal frameworks effectively transferred ownership of the securities to central depositories, stripping investors of direct property rights and putting their assets at risk in a monetary crisis. Everything's gone from type 1 to type 2. Everything's gone from your name to being in the name of Fidelity Asset Management for the benefit of you. This is interesting, and it's true. This is when they started taking shortcuts. The origins of this practice trace back to the paperwork crisis of 1968, when the volume of transactions overwhelmed Wall Street and Wall Street's ability to process paper-based security settlements. In response, financial authorities pushed for centralization of securities in depositories to facilitate efficiency. Of course, they made those depositories owned by the financial institutions. This move resulted in the dematerialization of securities, meaning that instead of investors holding physical stock and bond certificates, they were given book entry claims on pooled assets held at institutions like the DTCC. Pooled assets, street name, pooled assets. It's what we've been talking about. But from the 1980s onward,
Financial institutions began using these centralized securities as collateral for making their own bets. And you saw that with the governor of New Jersey that ran Goldman Sachs, bald guy, tall guy, started his own firm. He was a senator for a while. God, I have a Joe Biden brain. Financial institutions in the 80s began using these securities as collateral for their own speculative trading. This practice grew in scale, with banks encumbering securities multiple times over collateral change. This is what I've been talking about. This is expanding assets. By the 1990s, oh gosh, if we had just had Bill Clinton back, wasn't he wonderful? Bill Clinton, that's the last great president we had. The financial industry sought to legalize this activity, culminating in the 1994 revision of UCC Article 8. With this revision, the concept of quote unquote security entitlements was introduced, which replaced direct ownership of securities with a contractual claim. So when securities entitlements were introduced under Bill Clinton, thank you, he's so wonderful, Bill Clinton. God, things were so much better under Bill Clinton. And he was so smart. Bill Clinton was so smart. So securities entitlements replaced direct ownership of securities as a contractual claim, effectively allowing central depositories to use the securities at their will. This is an amazing letter. Amazing. I didn't read it before this. Rehypothecation. This is from David Morgan. The rehypothecation, the practice of reusing pledged collateral to secure multiple obligations. Rehypothecation, the practice of reusing collateral which has already been pledged to someone else. Rehypothecation, the practice of reusing pledged collateral to secure multiple obligations, lies at the heart of this scheme. When banks engage in derivatives trading, oh, wasn't Bill Clinton just amazing as president? He had such foresight, and our economy was booming. He was on our side. When banks engage in derivatives trading, unregulated because of Bill Clinton and Secretary of Treasury Rubin, they use securities held at the DTCC and at Euroclear as collateral without your knowledge. Even quote-unquote segregated accounts, which are supposed to be separate from pooled securities, are ultimately included in the same collateral pool. They move, the brokerage firms no longer have type 1 in your name. They have it in street name, pooled assets. The U.S. Federal Reserve acknowledged this is legal. Sorry, it's my eyesight is really complex. I see things kind of okay, but then I can see things in double. Anyway, but I am very thankful I can see. The U.S. Federal Reserve acknowledged this in legal documents responding to EU regulators, explicitly stating that investors, quote, do not have rights attaching to particular securities in the pool, unquote. They're all in the pool. Instead, investors hold only a pro rata claim to a collective securities pool. This effectively makes investors unsecured creditors in the event of solvency. And this was Governor Cornyn, Senator Cornyn, took over the brokerage firm RPM, RFP, RFM, FRM. Anyway, he took over a brokerage firm, and because he no longer was at Goldman Sachs. When you're at Goldman Sachs, you have your arm, your whole body is fused to the channel, the electricity current of information, cheating, inside trading, front running, cheating, collusion. But then you start thinking you're smart. You leave, you start your own company, RFP or whatever it was. You think you're smart. You're not. You no longer have. You're no longer hooked in to the cheating at Goldman Sachs. So he entered huge currency trades. They went against the firm. He was levered, as they say, up. I think it was over 100 to 1. It was massive. The trades went against him. And he took the collateral that people thought they had in their brokerage accounts and he pledged it. It's illegal, but is it really? Is it really? And he never went to jail. He's a Democrat. The legal and regulatory structures introduced under the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code, by Bill Clinton. He didn't write that, I'm telling you. And the European Union frameworks have effectively turned securities ownership into a form of indirect claim. Rather than having outright ownership, investors are granted a contractual claim. It's a chit, which allows financial institutions to prioritize financial institutions' own interests in using these assets. If a major financial crisis were to occur, the first rights to the underlying securities would go to the secured creditors involved in the derivatives contracts, not to the investors themselves. Thank you, Bill Clinton. But those were the days, Bill Clinton. This legal arrangement has allowed the derivatives market to grow to a staggering 1.5 quadrillion. These numbers just make your head spin. $1 trillion you couldn't spend in all the lifetimes on Earth. What the hell is a quadrillion? Derivatives have grown to 1.5 quadrillion secured by your assets. This explosive growth has been driven by the unregulated. Thank you, Bill Clinton. Oh gosh, he was just wonderful. Just to have Bill Clinton back again. That rascal. At least he wasn't a predator like Donald Trump. As more institutions became dependent on rehypothecated collateral, the financial system became increasingly fragile. The failure of a single major institution could trigger a cascade of defaults throughout the system. If such widespread defaults were to take place, the financial institutions would have the legal authority to seize all the securities in your account which were used as collateral. The total amount of securities held at the DTCC today, I'm paraphrasing, today is approximately 87 trillion. 87 trillion. And at Euroclear, it's about 39 trillion. So the total, if you can add that up in your head, 87 plus 39, 120, 137 trillion in securities collateralize 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives. This mismatch indicates that the existing structure cannot absorb a major financial disruption, which eventually means we're going to have a full-blown crisis. I think it means the Fed's going to bail out the hedge funds this weekend. Wow. Wow. So I guess I wasn't so smart. This arrangement is analogous to the practice of fractional reserve banking, where banks lend more money than they possess. Have you heard that before somewhere? Financial institutions are leveraging securities far beyond their actual availability. This leads to artificially inflated asset prices. It distorts financial markets, and it increases the risk of systemic failure. It can be reasonably assumed that the 1994 Bill Clinton revision of Article 8 of the UCC was enacted quietly with minimal public awareness or scrutiny. Professor James Rogers of the Boston College Law School admitted that only a handful of individuals involved in the process truly understood its implications. One could have, quote, counted on one hand, with a few fingers unused, the number of people, unquote, among the committee and sponsoring organizations who had any real understanding of either the 1978 version of Article 8 or the changes made and the complexities of the modern securities holding system. 78 was Carter. Rogers himself acknowledged that the 1994 revision was pushed through with little comprehension by those tasked with its approval. Now, this critical issue is getting broader attention. As awareness spreads and the degradation of property rights becomes recognized, it is no longer possible to keep such developments concealed. Lawmakers across the United States have begun introducing bills aimed at amending Article 8. These legislative efforts seek to reestablish true property rights for investors. Thank God. Can we get away from the third way in Bill Clinton? By prioritizing the entitlement holders have over secured creditors of derivatives contracts. So in other words, right now with derivatives contracts, if a derivative blows up, the person issuing that derivative has first claim on your assets. And the person that owns the derivative has first claim on your assets. And he goes on to say that the EU is more complex. I'm going to skip over that. Steps toward reform are taking place to restore the fundamental rights of investors and avert a potentially catastrophic financial collapse. Several reforms are needed. Let's see what he says. First, the bill, I'm saying it, he's not, the Bill Clinton 1994 revision of the UCC Article 8 must be repealed. Bill Clinton's signature must be repealed. But he was so great. He's our best modern president. This legal framework stripped investors of direct property rights by introducing the concept of quote unquote security entitlements. Thank you, Mr. What is the definition of is? Repealing this revision is essential to restoring genuine ownership of securities. Bravo, David Morgan. Second, the legislation must be introduced to prohibit financial institutions from using client-owned securities as collateral without the investor's explicit consent. Any use of such securities should also mandate compensation to the rightful owners, recognizing their property rights. Brilliant. Third, the scale of derivatives, the derivatives market, must be drastically reduced. As it stands, and this was something that Bill Clinton with the Graham, I think it was the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, Bill Clinton signed at the recommendation of Secretary Rubin, left-handed. Oh, the financial markets will regulate themselves. No need for more government. Remember, he was the best Republican Republicans ever had. Big government's the problem. Government isn't the answer, it's the problem. So let's just let the financial institutions do it. Unbelievable. As it stands, the derivatives complex poses a threat to financial stability. Some progress has been made. Last, transparency must be improved. No shite, Ann Wagner. Public awareness must be raised. In conclusion, the unrestricted use of securities as collateral is a systemic threat to financial stability, property rights, and the rule of law. The current financial framework prioritizes the interests of the quote-unquote too big to fail institutions over individual investors, effectively placing all securities at risk in the event of a market crash. Without meaningful legal reforms, the continuation of this practice will lead to an inevitable crisis. It's an interesting article he has. I don't know how to process the information quickly, but Ted Butler writes an article on solid state batteries. Now, I don't know if MMAT had solid state batteries. Samsung has a novel solid state battery which has superior energy density as compared, I'm paraphrasing, as compared to lithium ion batteries. It also happens to contain up to 20 times the silver content. The big battery manufacturers in the world, two of them, CATL and BYD, command 50% of the global market. I wonder if they are behind MMAT going down. But these companies' most advanced lithium ion batteries wane in comparison to Samsung's SSB in terms of energy density. I've never heard of this. This is fascinating to me. They compare the metrics. I have no idea what it means. CATL's most advanced nickel-based battery utilizes nickel manganese cobalt cathode, rivaling the energy density of the nickel cobalt aluminum battery used in Tesla's Cybertruck. Yet Samsung's SSB possesses the ability to deliver the same energy output with half the weight and half the volume. The usage of silver in Samsung's SSB is paving the way for marked increases in safety and longevity. Amazing. I swear, whoever can come up with a breakthrough in batteries, that's your next trillionaire. I'm not going to read everything because I don't think it's fair to the author. You have to subscribe to get this. Each of the layers in this battery use up to 5 grams of silver and 1 kilogram per battery, I guess. It is the presence of silver and the absence of flammable liquid electrolyte that renders the SSB safer than lithium-ion batteries. And it gives the battery a lifespan of 20 years. Samsung has secured an agreement with Toyota to begin mass production in 2027, with Lexus vehicles scheduled to be among the first to integrate the new technology. I would guess Toyota is a pretty good company to own, and Samsung. Eventually, every electric vehicle battery worth their salt is shifting gears away from a future solely dominated by LFP and NCM, whatever that is, and I assume it's lithium, and toward the race for solid state batteries. Yeah. If electric cars can in fact be mass produced with solid state batteries, you would have long ranges, short charging times, and lower price tags equivalent to combustion engines. It's pretty pounceable. All right, I'm not going to read any more of that. There's a merger between Equinox Gold and Caliber Mining. This is going to be the future. These companies are going to start merging and being acquired. There'll be money to be made in those. I guess it's allergies, but my nose has just been bothering me for a few weeks. He talks about Bitcoin. I'm not gonna talk about Bitcoin. He breaks his company's recommendations into top tier, mid tier, and junior and speculative. I'm not going to give out the names of any. The top tier I'll give out because I've already given these names. Everybody knows these names. And his top tier recommendations are Hecla Mining, which I've given to you, particularly in the silver area, Hecla Mining, HO. He has 100% gain in it. Endeavor Mining, we've talked about Endeavor Mining. That's up 25%. Wheaton Precious Metals, we've talked about over and over and over again. For him, he bought that at $4. He's up 1,700%. I've also talked to you about, not in depth, but I've talked to you about Pan American Silver. He's up 1,000% on that. Franco Nevada, I've talked to you about. He's up 700%. And then Agnico Eagle, I've talked to you about that. He's up 1,100%. I'm not going to give you his mid-tier or junior producers or speculations. Now, I will give you his definition of those tiers, because what I've told you, the cycle, and everything's rapidly happening now, all at once. But the cycle is first the gold and silver, platinum, palladium prices move upward. Somewhere in there, the ETFs start moving or they move alongside. But really what happens, and I've said this, we had to come around a new year so that the wealth advisors that you employ, who all imitate each other, so that by fractional moves, that hopefully they can be in the top quintile or quartile, so that when you come to re-up your retirement plan, you'll stay with them. But they don't want to take the risk of being out of those trades before anyone else. So as we've come around the new year, and I predicted all of this, I'm not sure we're over with it, though. That's where I'm making a stand, and I could be wrong. But you've got to get out of the NVIDIA trade and into the resource trade. But first, you got to educate your brokers, your wealth managers, and then you got to educate the public. And it's happening. All right, so what does top tier mean? Top tier miner. This is for your serious money. This is for retirees or fund managers. And that's why they move first. The top tiers move first. Top tier stocks should contain 90% of the money allocated to precious metals mining stocks. And he doesn't give you the whole list that I've given you. He leaves out Barrick Gold and Newmont Mining, for example. I think Alamis Gold is a good one. You know, there's other ones. But the top tier is where the money goes first. That starts to run. That becomes the acquiring group. And then what he does, once he has a stock that gets up in the top tier, is just a hold. Because you're not going to get the outperformance in the top tier. But if the whole complex moves, you're going to get that. Mid-tier, these are serious companies with a higher growth rate, but more risk. All right. If you have good incomes, you focus on this list. Okay. Junior producers, these are companies that are producing, and they're companies who can grow revenues by increasing production and by expanding exploration. They have higher risk, obviously, than the mid-tier, but less risk than the speculations. The speculations are high risk, high reward. These are for monies you can afford to lose. You must put equal dollar amounts into every high risk, high reward to diversify properly. You can't pick one company. That's interesting. That's how he does it. Anyway, we can we'll move on from him for now. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have played that Rod Stewart video. I'll see if I can get my video back up somehow. Bernie Madoff said people on Wall Street are greedy. Not a good idea for them to regulate themselves. Absolutely. Peace, happiness, love, health, and wealth, and the wagging tail, bad breath, hello of puppy dogs. Yucca Frida, it is amazing. DB, great to see you over the weekend. What time is it? 3:30. All right, I'll go maybe another hour if I can think of anything to say. You're always so kind and responsive to our questions, except when I act like a deck. You deserve a middle. Friendship is friendship. It's all I need is friendship. I'm not always good at that. I try to be, but I'm not always good at it. I get hurt, different things. But I don't know why I'm doing this, DB, but I think I have a hope that I'm going to build something bigger and be able to build a bigger audience. But I suppose, depending on how the world goes, maybe just a source like like Larry King used to speak on AM radio, AM. Nobody has AM anymore. But if the world turns totally to nightmare, I think it's going to be really important
that people have a place where they can talk and learn. And yeah, anyway, I might be able to be part of that, but maybe I'll build a company. I'd like to build a company and talk to my shareholders and raise money and be honest. Maybe I'll start an exchange, start in a fund. I don't know, but I'd like to bring that integrity back. So I figure I'm learning how to do some of those communication skills. But I haven't figured, YouTube, I haven't figured out how to avoid. I don't make any money doing it, which is okay. At some point, though, I've got to start. I guess I've waited long enough. No one's ever going to marry me. But at some point, I've got to start making money and maybe have a producer and have a better way of doing it. But whenever that comes, friendship would be more important to me than any of the rest of it. And I'll try to remember everybody here who is my friend. I'm certainly yours, and I try to be. I know I'm intemperate and frustrated sometimes, but I can't always tell who is a shill. And nothing makes me angrier than the cowards who steal your money and then gloat about it. Nothing makes me angrier. What are my thoughts on MUX? Well, it's a nice symbol. I think it's good as far as the symbol is concerned. $7.96 year to date. Oh, good. It's not at all-time highs. I like that. I like that. So you're getting in early. McEwen Mining. I don't obviously know anything off the top of my head about McEwen Mining. I'm trying to, oh, it's got 41 years behind it. I like that. An investor who bought $1,000 of the McEwen Mining stock at its IPO in 1984 would have I don't understand this. It says minus 921, roughly basically losing most, a compound negative rate over the last 40 years. That's not good, but I'm not sure that's. Look, the mining stocks are subject to the exact same criminal activity as any others. I mean, it doesn't leap out to me on my first glances that this is something I'm going to go running into. Let me see what their news has been. I mean, it is trading nicely. Strategic investors and Mr. Rob McEwen participate in the exercise of Goliath resource market at once. MUX miss estimates. That's all right. I don't care about that. Strategic investments and challenges. They have a conference call. Revenues disappoint. I don't care about that. Large gold-rich layered system.
Motherlode intrusive source. McEwen in mining, it completes $10 million investments in Goliath resources. I think I've heard of Goliath before, but I don't know anything. They did a private placement. Goliath drills 9 grams per ton. Where is that? There's a map here, but I don't know where is it. They have a discovery, the Sherbet cross section. Where is Sherbet? Oh, I like where they're going with that. I like the, I think it's called VMS source. It's high risk, but if they found something, you can, and they have to determine how big it is. I like that. I'm just looking at, I think that's called VMS. It goes down, the source is basically magma. They have all this, I like it that they have a discovery. Multiple intercepts of stacked layers containing high-grade gold. I like it. And they lay it all out. I think it's great. I don't, Winged Wolf, I don't know much about it. And this is, we're talking about Goliath here, but MUX bought into it. With only 15 months of boots on the ground, the strong mineralization consistently observed in 100% of 243 drill holes to date clearly demonstrates the continuity and the predictability of this extensive mineralizing system, which remains open in all directions, providing for excellent additional discovery and expansion potential. Confirmation of high gold grades in the recently discovered reduced intrusion related gold system, characterized by considerable amounts of visible gold, bismuth, and molybdenum. How do you say that? In the felsic to intermediate porphyritic dikes could greatly increase the tonnage potential in the Sherbet discovery. I like it. That's 2024. That's Goliath. Now the risk. Oh, Dr. Quentin Henne. I know him. I haven't met him, but I know of him. He gets involved, if it's the same guy, I'm sure it is. He gets involved in really massive upside projects. I like it. It's risky. You got a long time to production. But this would be a perfect buyout candidate or JV candidate. I like it. My reaction is it looks good, but let me write it down and see if I can find anything else. A year ago, you said Northwest Bio will get a buyout. Well, just to be clear, I didn't say they would. I said they could. But anyway, yes, I do think they could get a buyout. I think it's highly likely they'll get a buyout. My understanding, just on a surface level, I'm not a doctor or a chemist or any of that, is that their therapy works on cancer and on the brain. It will be very valuable, and I think somebody will buy their product, buy the whole thing. So yes, I do think, and I even further, I think it's the only way you can make a profit in Northwest Biosystems. I don't think they're going to be able, if there's approval, I don't think they'll be able to fund getting that approval into a meaningful revenue stream, just because the criminals will destroy the stock price. That's what they're good at. I need the right team behind me. Yeah. Or in front of me doing all the work. Are you my friend, John Clausen? Yes, of course. Of course. I actually think you have a lot to offer people here, probably better insights than the insights I have. But I think together we can make things happen. And it's not about just one person, of course, but your information and your prodding and guiding, I think, has helped me give better information. But I think I have a feeling people here would learn a lot more from you succinctly than they do from me. So it's good that you're here. I mean, we share information. Yeah, AM radio used to be a lot of news. For me, it used to be baseball games. And then late at night, I've always had a problem sleeping through the night, unless without getting too detailed. If I'm dating somebody, it's a little bit better. But so I used to listen to Larry King on his all-night show. And was it Art Bell, or was it the guy before Art Bell that I think he died, or they got in an argument? Anyway, I'd sometimes listen to that too, but other times I just listen to the news. Jim Sinclair, I don't know what Menet means, but Jim Sinclair was a great gold analyst, and I used to listen to him all the time. And he was on the board of certain mines, but he did have a mining operation. And I would have trusted investing with him, but and the gentleman that was his right-hand man now has a pretty good following of his own. He had a similar background as mine. I mean, he got his start on Wall Street. His name is Bill Holter. Bill Holter. I still listen to Bill Holter. Are we friends? I've written you an email, but never got one back. I haven't been very good. Look, I don't know how to use X and direct messaging. I do have an email, and I should go through all of those, but I guess it's how I manage my stress a little bit. And it's also, I don't have the computers. I need better setup with computers and printers and all that. And I probably need an assistant to handle all of those things. But yeah, I'll go through my emails. Of course we're friends. Of course we're friends. TRX. Yeah, I remember that symbol. With Sinclair gone, it doesn't excite me. Well, the reason I brought up those tiers, and we're starting to miss the boat, but owning silver and gold and platinum and palladium physically is a way to start. Owning some of the ETFs, whether if you're trading, you can own the popular ETFs, but I like the physical ones. But you know what you can't get around? If you buy, for example, the Sprott Physical Silver Trust or his other trusts, they, to my memory, use RBC as their custodian, to my memory. I called up Sprott Asset Management when I still have these investors, but they don't talk to me anymore. I brought a lot of investors in on a publicly traded gold company. And the CEO brought in, I think, a complete nincompoop, but he was young and arrogant. And the CEO wouldn't have to do any work. He introduced this guy without me present to my clients. And, you know, the guy took my presentation and put it in. Anyway, I don't want to go back over it. Anyway, but I called up RBC and I said, look, can we custodial our certificates there? Sorry, I called up Sprott Asset Management and asked if we could custodial. He said, well, we use RBC. And I think the problem is, in a crisis, is RBC going to take control of the securities? Wall Street is just a big theft by a handful of men. And you can't point it out. You can't go against it. So Sinclair mentioned MUX was solid. I tend to remember Goliath more than MUX, but he may have. He may have. For a period there, I just stopped listening because I learned it all, but then I had to move on to other things, and you just can't. It's just hard to process everything. So I don't remember exactly the stocks, but I'll keep MUX in my head. It was down my way. Took Candy and some friends to National Airport. Gronk misses her already. I know Gronk's a good guy. I know. I would have loved to see Gronk. Someday I'll meet Gronk. It'd be interesting if he likes me. I miss my boy. I miss my boy. I wish I had taken a DNA test of my dog. I just kept putting it off. It's all right. God will bring the right dog. Bill Holter I agree, he's a stand-up guy. I didn't know you guys are up in Philadelphia. I remember driving with one of my dad's friends, close friends, wife was driving. She's still alive. The husband died. She was great, but I remember driving, I think, from the beach, but maybe we were driving from anyway, we were listening on the radio to the Phillies, and I think it was when Tug McGraw got 3 outs over at first base. And I'm trying to remember, I think Pete Rose hit a pop-up, or he caught a pop-up. Can't remember. Anyway, there was a huge batter. It wasn't Lowenstein. It was there was a huge batter. Anyway, I was rooting for the Phillies to win that year. I hope I'm not mixing it up with Cincinnati Reds, which I could be. But I was rooting for the Phillies, and we listened on we were driving from Delaware, and we listened on a AM radio, and we couldn't hear everything. It just as something's happening, it'd fade out. It was frustrating. Okay. Can you focus on ACHR? Yeah, I would. Lucky was a great dog, but I bet Gronk is just as great. ACHR. Archer Aviation. Has it gone woke? A front runner in the development of electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. The African market, Abu Dhabi, Ethiopian Airlines. The first aircraft in Abu Dhabi for test flights by this year. FAA certification. That can take longer than you expect. Commercial airline partnerships. Has a market cap of $4 billion. Moderate buy recommendations. 12 months target of $11. It's at a crossroads. What a crap conclusion. They're losing money, of course. They have $800 million, but they lost $500 million. They have debt. It says they have 62 million shares short. I can't open up the research. A year ago, saw the midnight mock-up display, beautiful aircraft. Earnings call interesting. Archer made it clear they're not making any more prototypes. I have over 40 years in commercial airline experience. I see this company and aircraft capability and flexibility growing. Archer experiences sell-off today, concerns about dilution. What I'm worried about, Winged Wolf, is its financing. Doesn't matter how good the story is. If they've raised money so that people can sell stock that doesn't exist, it's the same old story. I'm not going to bore you with it. They seem to have a lot of cash, but that cash isn't going to last more than another year. So they are going to have to come up with a JV or a significant investor. And what CEOs have to do is convince investors that the valuation of the company should be here, not down here where the criminals get it. And, you don't have to go much further than, say, Collective Audience, where I think the value should have remained high, but he couldn't get any investors to come in at the higher numbers. So we did an ATM. I'll try to look into it. I think the financing is the biggest risk because they're going to need money. They're going to need money. Good news or bad news, they're going to need a lot of money. And it's just ripe for stealing. But I like a lot of it. But and when things are risky, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest. It's where if it plays out, that's where you can get your returns. Delaware. Yeah, I have friends who moved from my old neighborhood to Delaware. They always would invite me. They were older, and they said it's very nice, retirement, Pete was great. Oh, Pete Harnish or Pete, I forget which pitcher I just talked about. I have a bad brain. Archer makes a badass air taxi. $6 billion in pre-orders. Yeah, the orders are great, Winged Wolf. But until Wall Street is fixed, when they go to raise capital, Wall Street's going to make sure that there's 6 billion shares outstanding. That's the only thing I worry about. I'll try to look. I like the idea. It's just always the financing. All right, it's 4:00. The market's closed. The market is closed. All right, let me see. When I start a company, I have to take training in how to be polite to my audience. Yeah, I will. I will. All right, how long is this? See, these are such good points that he makes. I love that there's so many smart people out there. Why didn't I write a book? Why didn't I? So many smart people. A few years back, this is Mike Maloney. A few years back, my friend and colleague Jeff Clark noticed that the majority of geologists and mining engineers were between 50 and 80 years old. That's a few years back. The other thing is they're mostly men, and they're mostly honkies, and they're mostly nerds. A lot of them are Republicans, in my experience, or libertarians, but they're all interesting. So the point is, who will take up the slack once this generation is dead? No one. The glamour today is software development, artificial intelligence, social media, and the Reagan financial revolution. They called it Reagan. So that's what gives huge. I think you're going to have 2 decades, 3 decades. If you have sons and daughters, try to get them to look into being geologists and mining engineers, or oil too. Students don't want to enter the mining sector. In 2020, United States schools awarded 200,000 engineering degrees. 200,000 engineering degrees. The number of mining engineers was 327. When demand for gold and silver surges, there will not be enough new ounces to mine, nor will there be enough miners to dig up the ounces, nor enough schools to educate a new generation of miners. It's virtually impossible to fill the future demand at today's prices. Something's got to give. And it's going to be price. All right, so I just want to get I know it's annoying. I'm trying to get these concepts in your head, trying not to be repetitive. But what I'm also trying to do is, if you have knowledge, or even just some of this knowledge, when the panic sets in or prior to the panic, you might have a different step in your gait than those who are panicking, because you might know, hey, I got to go do this. I better get this done. So he makes this. Now, this is interesting. I'm amazed how many people out there have like thoughts and like experiences to what I did. I didn't get into the stock market in the 70s. I was a kid. But I remember really loving to look in the stock pages, and I would follow Pan American and a couple of other stocks. And it was just an area of interest. Anyway, he says everybody loves stocks right now. But in the 1970s, stocks were like flogging a dead horse. That's right. I remember it. The Dow went to 1,000 in 1966, and it didn't break through 1,000 until 1982. I remember that. It took 16 years and 10 months. So for every dollar you invested in 1966, you had a dollar in 1982. That's what's coming again, I think. So then he takes that dollar that you got your kicks with on Route 66, 17 years. You invested a dollar in 1966. So you invested in the Dow at 1,000, and it took until 1982 for the Dow to go through 1,000. 17 years to get your money back. But did you really get your money back? And he explains that. Even though the stock market's price remained constant, the stock market's value declined by 73%. 17 years after making a $1 investment, the value of that $1 dropped by so much, you could only buy 27 cents worth of 1966 goods and services in 1982. This is known as an invisible crash, and it would take many decades before anyone would even realize it had happened. This was the paragraph I wanted to read to you. In January 1970, a new single-family median price home was 23 grand. I'm going to write 600. I'm going to write that down. 23,600 median price in 1970. If you had sold your house then, you would be able to buy 674 ounces of gold with the proceeds. By 1980, that home that you sold would have tripled in price. The median house price in 1980, single family, was 62,900. So it tripled. But over that same period of time, your gold would have risen 25 times, from 23,600 to 588,000. You could have then sold your gold and purchased 6 homes and had your original money left in your pocket. Now, you're going to wonder why I always talk about silver. If you had sold the same home and purchased silver instead of gold, by January of 1980, your silver would have purchased 16 homes. So by owning gold, you could have purchased 9. Your silver would allow you to buy twice as many. So that's one thing I'm trying to get you to think about, is owning silver and gold and oil and gas right now. You're not going to own it forever. Own it for 6 years, own it for a decade. And then when you sell it while everyone else wants it, and there's crises, there's blood in the streets, as they say in real estate, you can go buy a subdivision. Maybe you too could marry the most available woman in America. So anyway, he goes on to say, throughout the 1970s, and again, I was not an adult. I guess in Catholic terms, I was. It was my teenage years mostly, and pre-teenage, and then teenage years. But during the 1970s, nothing enjoyed the astronomical gains which precious metals provided. But as BTO says, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. I said, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. I have to learn a lesson. I can't play music or they take down the video. Well, it doesn't make sense. I'm not making money. Let it generate views and give the money to the Backman Turner Overdrive. Give the money to Amy Bell. I don't need it. Don't take the video down. All right, so the powerful forces behind what he calls the great gold and silver rush for the 21st century are gathering strength by the day. And this was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. In the 70s, if you measure it by a horse race, silver returned 41 times, gold returned 25 times, and real estate returned 2 times, and the Dow returned 1x in the 70s. So what are the differences between the 70s and today? The transformation, which we have seen over the last 5 decades, 50 years, is astonishing. And I believe, this is Mike Maloney, these factors will cause gold and silver prices to soar to unfathomable heights. One thing is, the available supply has changed. The alleged price suppression and how it compares to the price suppression of the 70s, 60s, and 70s, it's gotten worse. I don't think it's alleged anymore. The number of people who could purchase precious metals back then, but versus the number who can buy them today. The investor mindset, the dramatic difference in the amount of wealth per person now versus then, and then the access to information now versus then, the ease of making purchases now versus then. I'm going to show you why gold and silver are different from all other investments. He spent the last chapters telling you how the demand is going to be huge. But what about supply? In the 60s and 70s, there were few gold miners. The Bretton Woods monetary system mandated that the price of gold be fixed. So it held the price at artificially low $35 an ounce until August of 1971, when the president announced nix on that. As for silver, the price has been suppressed, or had been suppressed, until 1965, simply because the face value on silver coinage specified a price of $1.29 an ounce. Old US silver dollars contained 0.7734 troy ounces of silver. It took 1.3 silver dollars to equal 1 troy ounce. If the price of silver ever exceeded that, the coins were more valuable, melted into silver and poured into bars. That is why silver was removed from US coins in 1965. It was to keep US coins in circulation by replacing our silver money with currency. In other words, he says precious money and metals are money. Everything else is just currency. And then Alistair McLeod says everything else is just credit. So we replaced silver money with currency. We just made tokens of worthless base metal. It took away the profit motive. This prevented the public from melting down all of the US coins for a profit. And that's Gresham's law. That's Gresham's law, as I recall it, is all the good money, all the good coins come out of circulation, all the good money, all that's left is the crap. I think he wrote it better than I just described it. Silver and gold are commodities which are priced in paper currency. If you expand the currency supply, which lowers the currency's purchasing power, and you do not allow the price of the commodities to rise, shortages will develop. That's guaranteed. There's no other outcome. If the price of something is held artificially low, then it's not profitable to produce it. Once it's not profitable to produce, no one will produce it. So until August 15, 1971, the Bretton Woods system had fixed the gold price at $35 an ounce. This artificially suppressed demand. So when President Nixon ended the Bretton Woods system, the price rose, which increased investment demand, which caused the price to rise further. New miners, new gold and silver miners came out of the woodwork. Everyone wanted in on the new gold and silver rush. Since then, mining activity booms when prices rise, but goes bust in bear markets. As what he terms the great gold and silver rush of the 21st century unfolds, explorers and developers will once again proliferate. Or will they? Or will they? These endeavors are capital intensive and seldom rewarding. Also, capital now is destroyed by Jeff Easton. The path from discovery to production used to take 5 to 8 years in the 70s. Now it's more like 10 to 20 years. This limits supply. The cost of these projects has ballooned from hundreds of millions into billions of dollars. And that, well, less than hundreds of millions, millions into hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And that's for the easy to reach deposits with the highest grades, which contain the most ounces and are located in favorable political jurisdictions. The hard facts are the number of large deposits discovered in each decade from the 1970s through the 1990s included at least one 50 million ounce deposit and at least 10 30 million ounce deposits. But since the year 2000, the industry has not found a single 50 million ounce deposit, nor a 40 million ounce deposit, nor a 30 million ounce deposit. Which, by the way, is why I'm so excited about the company some of you invested in. Now we are finding just a few 50 million ounce deposits instead. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find a deposit of just 1 million ounces. Goldcorp's chairman Ian Tefler in 2018 predicted, quote, "We are right at peak gold here." He was spot on. Production has been declining ever since, and the situation with silver is even worse. All right, I'll stop there. He goes into price manipulation, and we'll talk about that another time. You already know about it pretty much. Look at this map that he gives. In the 70s, this one, where it's yellow, those were the countries and the population where it was legal to own gold. It was kind of legal, quasi-legal, I guess, in the United States and Australia, but Canada and Europe, I'll give you the distinction. All of the rest of the world, it wasn't legal to own gold. The bright yellow was that it's legal and wealthy, and the sort of browner yellow is it was only legal after Jimmy Carter, 1975, 1976. But then look at the chart below. The entire world now has a legal right to own gold, except for North Korea. Everywhere else has a right to own gold. The dynamics are changing. All right, I'll leave it there because I've talked on that too much. It's 4:30. Let's just see if they've bailed out a hedge fund yet. I'm making that prediction. There's no evidence that anyone's doing any such thing yet. Cory Booker wants to investigate insider trading on tariff movement. He doesn't want to investigate Nancy Pelosi or Hunter Biden. Unbelievable. Taking a while. So I'll see what everybody is saying. Pete Rose. Yeah, Pete Rose was great. Pete Rose was something. No news. No news that I see. It's Sunday after all, Palm Sunday. Yeah, we don't have to focus on that. Tug McGraw. Yeah, it was Tug McGraw. Tug McGraw. Funny you mentioned going into mining. If I hadn't gone down the aviation path, geology was my next area of focus. Yeah, I used to be able to, I did, we didn't have, they created cones at my college, So we didn't technically have a major and a minor. We did these cones, but mine was geology. And I used to spend nights studying on the blackboard and memorizing it. My sister's so funny. She took some geology, and she has this memory. She's just going to remember everything. I had to really study it and build out things I could remember, like, can Ollie see down my pants pocket? Cambrian, Ordovician, Devonian, I think Mississippian, Permian, Paleozoic, Permian, something like that. Let me look up the let me get a chart here. Here's one. So Cenozoic. See, I'm already wrong. I enjoyed it, but obviously I don't remember any of it. Can Ollie see down my pants pocket? I wonder which direction I used that memory trick with. Simple scale, timeline. Here's one. So I did it from oldest up. Cambrian, I was right. Ordovician, Can, Ollie, C, Solarian, down, Devonian, my, Mississippian, pants, Pennsylvanian, pocket, Permian. That's how I remembered those. And then you have the Triassic, I don't know how I remember those now. All very interesting. Yeah, we're all old now. We're all older now. Thank you. Have a great night. If Ham is right, who's Orville? If Ham is right about the news with Trump doing so much, the market should be going high. Yeah, I mean, I would guess, but I actually think when they ban short selling, it's usually a sign of desperation. But you're right; it should have a positive effect on the market, and maybe that would be what causes the market to have a blow-off rally. Could be. Oh, that's what you say here. You could be right about it going, yeah, that could be. By the way, I'm a scientist. Well, we don't listen to scientists anymore. We just follow the science as long as it's given out by certain people. That's cool. I'll remember that. I hope I remember it. LBJ said that the government would sell silver to keep people from. Well, actually, the government maintained a stockpile, and they manipulate the price. But that's my whole point. It's not just the United States anymore. You know, if you don't see it happening, and everything's happening so quickly, I think Trump, in his own way, is trying to act rapidly, but the world is breaking down into basically Russia, China, and the United States. You got to fit in India, you got to fit in Germany somehow, you got to fit in Brazil, and you might have to fit in the Middle East. but it's basically going to be Russia, China, and the United States. And we're behind right now. I think even though Trump alluded to that we have some weaponry, I don't think we're prepared for war the way Russia is. I don't think we have the weapons Russia does. And we certainly don't have the surplus energy, hydrocarbons, or resources that Russia has vis-a-vis its population and its demand. So I think Russia is going to have an American century. China has some unique issues, but they do follow the science, and they've built out factories and relationships that might just work. It might just work. They also have Southeast Asia sitting down below, and they can grab it. India's a little trickier. India doesn't really like China. They're competitive. India's very close to the Middle East, and India has the population where they could have soldiers in the Middle East and protecting regimes. But it's odd. There's the religious issues. There's a lot of, for example, a lot of Pakistanis work in the Middle East at really horrible conditions, which I pointed out to my friends. And they said, Bill, what are you talking about? It happens in your country as well. Just look. Next time you go home, look. The same thing. It happens. It's not Pakistanis. It's not Filipino. It's Mexicans. Next time I came back, I looked around, I was like, wow. It's not quite the same, but wow, we do it here too. So anyway, one of the changes that's happening very quickly is that the U.S. cowboys cannot suppress markets for much longer. And I'm amazed at that letter that David Morgan wrote, because he had a different angle than what I've talked about, but it's that same issue. And you could have Russian markets or Middle Eastern markets or Chinese markets. Money will go where it's honest. So we have to clean up our markets. And I think Trump might be working toward all of those. What happened with the great stock logic? I don't know if you're a real person. I also don't know, Lewis, if going over dead stories and spending a lot of energy on it is the best way to recover assets. But, I'll go ahead with it. Logic was a company originally, when it was brought to my attention, was called Wayland. And they had real estate and technology and fintech, primarily in the United States, but they also had companies in Southeast Asia and Africa. The stock was trading at, I don't know, to my memory, it was in the teens. And the story was that it was worth much, much more than that. The CEO was a guy named Brent Sun, and he worked hard. He's an honest guy. And he basically broke the company into two parts, roughly. One was called Logic, and the other was called Go Logic. And he divided the assets
basically, into North American assets, which was Logic, and Southeast Asian African, basically, for GoLogic. So the company became 4 different pieces of paper, basically, over time. And the Whalen name disappeared. Brent's next step was to go to the Canadian markets, NEO, the NEO exchange. And he did that as a way to try to sidestep the corruption in the American markets, but instead he stepped right into a hornet's nest. Apparently four companies, 4 so-called investment banks, funded Logic on the NEO exchange at, to my memory, $3 a share. You know the story. They just shorted the stock. They shorted it and shorted it and shorted it and shorted it. And it went down basically to around $1, 80 cents, $1.20. So then Brent hired a financing firm called Ionic Financial, who shorted the company, although lawyers sent me a letter saying they didn't short it, but they did. It's just definitional. So Ionic was given stock, and they manipulated the price into the, not necessarily pennies, but 10, 20, 30 cents. They did, after much negotiation, Brent was able to negotiate that financing away from Ionic by giving them a shitload of money. So the company ostensibly was out of the grips of the Ionic scheme. So then what Brent did with Logic is he took the underlying software, the underlying product, and he created a company with it. That's where the revenues were. That's where the growth was, called Data Logic. Data Logic. So he subdivided Logic, again, into Logic and Data Logic. Logic had some assets, minor in comparison to Data Logic. Data Logic was the heart of the company. So he sought out a company called Chadron Financial, and you might work for Chadron, I don't know, and another company called Aubrey Advisors, both multi-billion-dollar companies, to my memory. One or both had sponsored hundreds of SPACs. So what they did is they created a SPAC and sponsored it for Data Logic. The SEC had questions. Logic always answered the questions immediately. Aubrey Advisors and Chadron, as sponsors, delayed answers. And the net effect of those delays was, in order to get the deal done, the SEC said, you run out of time on these financials. We've got to see new data on your financials. So
the company had Logic and Data Logic had, but particularly Logic, had to raise more money prior to approval for the SPAC from the SEC. That diluted shareholders. That was intentional, in my opinion, by Aubrey Advisors and Chadron. There were two hedge funds that financed the deal. One was Polar. The other one I can't quite remember. It may be in the filings. The SEC approved the SPAC, but Aubrey still needed to raise a little bit of money. So they raised $5 million. They gave $2.5 million to the attorneys, and they gave $2.5 million to the financial advisors. And in my opinion, they intentionally left Logic with zero money, and they left Data Logic with zero money. I think it was intentional. During the year and a quarter that it took for this process, they went to an outside firm and received a valuation for Data Logic that was equivalent to roughly $11, $10, $11, $12 a share. The stock traded as a SPAC, barely, not a lot of volume, but it traded at that level for over a year. It came time to de-SPAC. Well, the weird thing for a group that had done hundreds of sponsorships is they didn't raise enough money for either Logic or what became known as collective audience, Data Logic, to handle this process, to pay people. There wasn't any money in the larder. So when they did the de-SPAC, there wasn't really anyone manning the phones and thinking ahead. So no one called NASDAQ. The shorts did, who I think worked for Aubrey Advisors. The shorts called NASDAQ and said, hey, you know, this company, Collective Audience, that's going to be trading, it doesn't have enough shareholders. So you may ask, why do I think it was on purpose? If Chadron and Aubrey had done hundreds of these, why didn't they have an attorney call NASDAQ? Why didn't they leave enough money so the company could have handled it themselves? It was on purpose. So the collective audience, which people that owned Logic got shares of collective audience, by the way, the collective audience traded up to something like $40. The criminals called into NASDAQ, said, hey, there's not enough shares. And they stopped trading. That was like Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, the Aubrey Advisors called in and said, hey, we do have enough shares. It just took 24 hours to make the transition. So they started trading on Friday, Monday, and the stocks opened up at something like $10 or $11. And it went all the way down to $1 and now trades for a penny. Aubrey Advisors put 2 or 3 people on the board of Collective Audience, Data Logic, I think to protect the theft and to protect Polar. And then Aubrey Advisors has been providing an at-the-money financing, which has been extraordinarily destructive to the price of Collective Audience. Now, I fought this when I saw the financing
I got Matt online. I immediately called around. I wrote emails, and I was the only one. I was very uncomfortable calling to the attention of the new CEO at Collective Audience / Data Logic, which people who bought Logic received. And I said, this isn't going to work. This stock's going under a penny. If you don't do something. Oh, no, 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 no. The American Stock Exchange guy said, there's systems in place. Oh, no, no, no. You just got to get the algorithm running, and it'll run back up. You just got to get it up, and then their buying will come in, the guy from the American Stock Exchange said. The CEO said, oh, no, no, no. The guys at Aubrey are stand-up people. They're honest. They keep their word. All I see that Aubrey and Chadron has done is drive the stock to the expert market. That's the data logic side. Meanwhile, on the logic side, and remember, data logic was the majority of the assets of logic. So where the reward was going to come was from the distribution we received in data logic. In my accusation, and in my opinion, Aubrey advisors, Chadron advisors, their attorneys, Polar, stole $150 million from the shareholders of Logic / Data Logic. And they did it on purpose. I'm not sure Brent's the one that engaged them. I think Brent fought that as well. Now, I give credit to the CEO of Collective Audience, Peter Boards, because I think he studied it. He doesn't believe it, really. He can't believe that these people he went to school with, the guy that runs the over-the-counter market, and others could run such a sloppy ship or a dishonest ship. But I do notice that when it came time for the tried but true trick on the part of the criminals, Aubrey advisors, to do a reverse split in Collective Audience in order to stay on Adina Friedman's NASDAQ, Peter Boards told them to go pound sand. He didn't do a reverse split. And he went over to the over-the-counter market. He's brought in really talented teams. The market really is big. The need, it really is there. But we're up against criminals out of Aubrey Advisors, Chadron Financial, Polar, and elsewhere, and the lawyers that represent them. And they've won. Now, Logic post-SPAC, according particularly to the information I received from the gentleman that used to work on the Amex, but I also met with Brent in New York. Post-SPAC, Logic was supposed to have 80, 90 million shares outstanding. As it turns out, what I think Aubrey did intentionally, you ask yourself, if they could raise 5 million, a multi-$100 billion hedge fund, you don't think they could raise 7.5 million? And give Logic $1 million, give Collective Audience $1.5 million, pay a little bit to they did it on purpose. So Logic needed, as the kerfuffle and the disaster of the de-SPAC, which was orchestrated and intentional by Aubrey advisors, in my opinion, to the benefit of their client, Polar, in my opinion. It was all hands on deck. And so they worked really hard to rescue the Data Logic de-SPAC. It took
3 months, 2 months, 3 months. They didn't listen to me. They thought they were stabilizing it. And the guy that worked at the Amex didn't help himself out at all. And he basically accused me, I guess, of working with him, who he doesn't like, of being wrong in my information, and that my conclusions from what my eyes were seeing were wrong because I wasn't taking into account that there were systems in place and these were good clients, and you just needed to have the price go up a bit. This stock is going to go back to what it's worth. Well, all of his tattletaling on me resulted in isolating me, and people stopped listening to me. That's fine. They listened to the attorneys who were liars. They listened to the people from Aubrey who were on the board. I think Brent got into a fight with them, to his good credit. But what happened is that Aubrey advisors and their clients and Chadron and the lawyers orchestrated a massive destruction in the cap table and a massive theft of shareholder value. And they did it all under the auspices of documents and looking the other way. And they probably hired you to come here and ask this question. So what Logic had to do, remember, Logic was, when you bought it beforehand, Logic was Logic and the Data Logic, which was going into SPAC. The majority of value was in Data Logic. What was left behind was essentially a shell called Logic. It was clean. It was current in its reporting. It had a little ownership of one or two other things, but essentially that was it. And it had multiple companies ready to come into Logic. But Aubrey and Chadron and other people, maybe you yourself, were shorting Logic without owning it. So there was an incentive to make sure Logic didn't work. So they didn't raise enough money for Logic to stay current in its financings. So Logic came around into January, February, and they needed to raise money just to pay auditors, just to pay lawyers, and just to file the financials to stay in good standing as a shell. That didn't reduce the number of shares outstanding. It doubled it, trebled it. It brought the number of shares outstanding, to my memory, from 120 million to, that was supposed to be 90 or 85, brought it up to 350 million. They filed, they made announcements, as you know, they made announcements that they were going to have several companies merge in reverse mergers to Logic, worth over $1 billion a share. Based on the 350 million, roughly, it worked out to a midpoint of 50 cents a share in value. And then they were going to grow that. You could argue that it could be as much as 80 cents or $1 a share, but conservatively, 40 to 60 cents a share. And then Brent, they announced two companies. I forget the one. One was worth 10 million, and one was called MedLab Essentials. And that company is worth 100 million. in the medical space. MedLab Essentials was formed, or at least it looks like it was formed, simultaneously with the SPAC that Aubrey Advisors set up. MedLab Advisors CEO is an Israeli. It looks like an Israeli. He speaks Hebrew, German, I think Russian, English, Spanish, and one other language. My conclusion is he works with the team who set up the sting, and that MedLab Essentials is just the final coup de grace to make sure that Logic's shares are worthless. But what I'm hearing is the company believes that he actually is going to get the company back on, well, first time on NASDAQ, which implies there will be a reverse split of 100 to 1 or 200 to 1, 1 for 100, 1 for 200 or worse. Now, the company, I think, is in dreamland. I think Brent's son is an idiot for signing this deal. But I think he's a good man. He's honest. I think I don't know. But Brent's son is focused on Nixie. He's not focused on Logic. He has nothing to do with Logic anymore. So that instead of 7 or 8 deals going into Logic, only one, MedLabs Essentials, is going in. And they doubled the amount of shares to 750 million shares. And Brent actually thinks this guy's going to make it work. Bullshit. Bullshit. This Mr. CEO Voliker is working with Aubrey, Chadron, and Polar, and probably you, to make sure that this sting operation, this theft, never rears its head to cause a loss for Aubrey Advisors and their clients. That's what I think happened to Logic. I don't think there's any hope for Logic. Brent still, apparently, I haven't spoken to him, telling people, number one, he's saying speak to the new guy, but apparently they do have plans to bring companies in to make MedLabs grow into a $1 billion company. But how many times do you get lied to? How many times do you believe the bullshit? Logic was destroyed by extremely poor decision-making, in the end by Brent's son. But somewhere, somebody, and I don't think it was Brent, made the decision to hire Aubrey Advisors and Chandron, and that was a tragic decision. So what happened with the great stock Logic? It got taken in the alley, hit over the head, beaten up, raped, and it's been left for dead. They sent in an ambulance who's paid for by the criminals to make sure that Logic doesn't get revived. And they had a cop come in from the corrupt station next door who also works for the criminals. Logic is completely finished. It's wiped out by the stupidity in the end of Brent's son's decision to sell the company to MedLabs. And it's wiped out by group thinking which includes, I hate to say, a man who looks like he's got integrity, Peter Boards, but he didn't make the decision to hire Aubrey advisors either. Logic has been destroyed by you, Louis Monet, you and your buddies. Thank you for coming back and gloating. And happy Easter, happy Passover. All right, I'm gonna sign off. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. So effing appreciative, you don't even know. All right, I'm going to see you guys, I guess, tomorrow. So happy Palm Sunday. Stay cool. And good night. Good night, John. Good night, everybody. And good night to Gronk. Treats to Gronk.